What is up, everyone, and welcome to episode 67 of Pull Up with Miles and Owen. Today, we have a very special friend of the podcast, his third time joining the show. I think that ties him for the record. He is one half of the dunker spot alongside Steve Jones Jr., the best basketball podcast in the world. I'm just going to say it because it's a fact. For Yahoo Sports, Nekias Duncan, thank you so much for joining us. How's it going?
Thank you for having me. I am doing well. I'm like trying to get my mind like reconfigured because just the W season was awesome. The playoff run, we're going to talk a lot about the Aces naturally. That was awesome. And it's like, all right, cool. You get a week. Here's the parade. Here's like 3 or 4 days. The NBA season is here. Just like,
Yeah.
oh, right. I got 30 teams to try to monitor now. So like that's been a little bit of a thing, but basketball is awesome. Always blessed to do this and happy to rock with y'all again.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you're gonna have to gloat to Steve that you broke the tie. So now you're up 3-2 in appearances. But
It,
we were talking to our buddy Lucas Kaplan right after the Liberty season ended. And I think it was like the next day he had Nets media day and just
Mhm.
zero break before diving right back into a new season and just like objectively one that is way less fun to cover than the Liberty have been these last few years. So, and that's just one team. You're right. You got everything. So I do not envy that at all. I love that I can just like tap out once NBA season comes along and I can just like watch the Knicks and then listen to your pod and be told what else I should be watching, but I'm not. So I can sound smart without having to like live in the basketball world fully like I have to during the W season. So I appreciate you.
That
I
was
was gonna, I was gonna say it's like even harder than you just made it out to seem because it's like it's not just like the WNBA finals ends, you've got the parade, and then the season starts. It's like you guys are doing the most in-depth like division breakdowns of every team. Like, and there's a ton of overlap with the W season still going on. Don't know how you do it, but appreciate you for making the time. And we've got a Las Vegas Aces title to talk about. I'm so excited I can hardly get the words out. You were at the parade. Can you tell us what it was like? Because the Aces are getting a lot of buzz as the littest team in the WNBA, and can you confirm or deny those reports?
I don't want to disrespect any other fan bases or any other parades that have been had in the last 4 years, all one of them.
Wow.
But I will just say, the Aces crowd was incredible. The atmosphere was incredible. Like I wasn't at the one in 2022. At least I don't remember being there. Time flies. I was at the one in 23, and that was a time and a half with music performances and lots of things said on stage. We'll leave it there. In this year, because I got there a little late, the parade's supposed to start 5 local time. I like walked over to the area about an hour or so before it's supposed to kick off to get my credential. And I was like, huh, this already feels more full than it did in 23, like around the same time, an hour before it started. I was like, this crowd is probably going to be nuts if this is what it is. And the parade portion hasn't technically started yet. And sure enough, the plaza was loaded. And so just to see that many Aces fans, to hear that many tambourines, to see that many pink wigs, all the Aces gear, I'm talking like you got your older folks there. You got the little toddlers running around with their Asia shirts on. It was just a lot of different demographics, ages, all kinds of things. So, like, not to sound too cliche, but it really was just a melting pot of love for this basketball team. And, like, one, just W teams in general deserve that. But it is cool to watch Vegas just kind of invest and kind of pour themselves into the Aces the way that the Aces do to the community. So it was just it was very cool to see that. And then as the actual festivities got going, just to hear that and to hear that support and to hear how locked in everyone was, it was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it.
There are so many conversations as we're in this like expansion era now about putting new franchises into places with existing footprints for other major sports. But Vegas, the Aces were the first ones there, and like you said, like they have just embraced them. And I was there earlier last week too, and just seeing all the billboards on rotation, so like
Hmm.
congratulating them, and then obviously they also get lucky that the Aces get there and are this immediate dynasty for them, pretty much. But
Hmm.
the same thing with the Golden Knights. Like they were an expansion team and then they won a title in their second year or something like that. So Vegas has had some really good sports luck that can be part of it. But I do think there's something to be said about just how much these fans that are starved for a team of their own to root for will rally, will come out when there isn't, another 8 to 10 shows in town that they can be going to and spreading their sports fandom, but also spending their money on. And I think
Hmm.
it's really cool to just see, and it is interesting to hear about kind of the differences with the parades because it did have just a concert vibe. And I love that they held to a Friday night so that they could book major talent for that. And like New York, because it's so self-important here, I feel like it's so traditional where you walk up the Canyon of Heroes and you go to City Hall and it's like the Yankees have done 27 times before you. And it's just like cool. So now that's the culture that's already kind of been baked in. So I love that Vegas had put their own kind of spin on it and made it into this party and not just a like we're better than everyone else kind of thing where I feel like New Yorkers get off on that in general. So
Hmm.
like that I think is just a further truth when it comes to celebrating a championship, which was amazing, but it was cool to see one year to the next how different the vibes were there.
And boy, they really pulled out the stops for the acts. I tell you what, like getting Crime Mob for Asia is just for the crew, but for Asia in particular,
Yeah.
one of the funnier moments that I had. Because naturally, like they're gonna do Nuck If You Buck. Because why would you not do that? But like they're just going through their catalog, and they get to like the third or fourth song before they get done, and you can tell the crowd is like, "Wait, I don't know this one." And Asia's on stage, word for word, bar for bar. I'm just like, nah, this is how you placate your superstar right here. Get an act that she enjoys, that she is clearly a deep fan of, but you get Crime Mob, you get Maya, you get Ludacris. It's just like this doesn't feel normal, like complimentary. Like this doesn't feel normal for this to be the parade bit. And so again, it just kind of speaks to how Vegas has embraced the Aces. Like I will say, naturally, with like the history of UNLV, there's clearly a love for basketball in Vegas already there. But for the Aces to kind of take the professional platform and take it over to the way they have, it's really been awesome to see.
We're gonna get to Asia in a minute and talk about the basketball, but one more kind of vibes parade question. It strikes me that this title, from a basketball perspective, was so different from the first two of this now 3 and 4 years dynasty. A championship team, especially a team that's trying to repeat like the Aces were in 2023, is always going to look for motivation wherever they can find it and build this no one believes in us type of narrative. And, it's not to say it wasn't valid in that locker room back in 2023. It worked and there was a lot going on, believe me.
Hmm.
But in terms of the basketball, in terms of looking at the net rating, breaking down the film, I think we all believed in the Aces in 2023. This Aces team in 2025 went through a journey that is extremely unique when you look at all the champions in the history of the W and the history of the NBA. There aren't a lot of teams, maybe you can point to the 2021 Chicago Sky, but for the most part, like there aren't a lot of teams that had this type of arc to get to the final title of this 3 and 4 years run. Could you sense like that vibe, that just a little extra oomph in the Aces kind of like, hey, we did it and everyone stopped believing in us. Was there that feeling, that type of energy? Is that palpable at all?
There was some of that, yes. I feel like more of that was felt kind of on social media in the lead up to the parade more than the
Yeah.
actual parade itself. Like, honestly, one of the things that surprised me, I expected either closer to or a more extravagant version of like the 2023 stage appearances in the parade,
Mhm.
where everyone kind of got their bars off, etc. And for the most part, it was just, huh, we really got three of these. I love my teammates. We really had to lock in. This was tough. We got it done. We got three of these. And I was like, that's true, but like the parade literally started with, if you've seen from Asia's social, like the little 2 minute or 2 minute 30-second video of all of the are the aces done, getting different media folks in there. One of my Yahoo teammates was in there. It's like, well, it's got to tough. So like they had that, but they didn't lean into that the way that I thought they would. Now, granted, we do have an entire off season and hopefully not an extended off season, depending on what these CBA negotiations look like. But we do have lots of time for people to get their bars off. Like Chelsea's been on the pod, Jackie's been on the pod. So we'll see if more comes out. But at the actual parade, it was more celebratory and more appreciative of the room itself than like spite and pettiness.
That's
I wonder if there's something to be said for the sweep in taking some of the teeth out of it
Mhm.
because they battled to get through both of those, the first round and the second round to get to the finals.
Mhm.
And then when you run through the Mercury in the way that they did, and two of those games are close, two of them were not super competitive, it almost like you lose a little bit of steam on the nobody believed in us because it's undeniable at that point. So I do
Mhm.
wonder if just the way that the basketball played out did take some of that away, but also just like the sense of relief because then it's also like what 2.5, 3 months at that point where they had just basically been doing nothing but winning. So how much can you believe it when you're looking in the mirror and being like, everyone's trying to punk us when you've just been punking everybody else for the better part of the last 3 months.
Mhm. Like I think it's a hard thing to. Well, I don't want to speak for athletes, but I would imagine it's a harder thing to channel. Like it kind of reminds me of some of the pre-finals conversation from Kalia Copper, where she was like, "No, give me something to, to basically give me something to be mad at. Like we'll take
yeah.
any motivation. Like we understand, like we're smart, we understand how it goes, but no, we'll take any slight that we can get." And so I do wonder, to your point, if the Aces reached a point at any time, like, okay, more people are starting to believe now. Like we're more locked into us than the outside noise naturally, but okay, it's probably like an 8 instead of a 10 at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fascinating point of the season to enter the playoffs on a 16 game win streak and then face a team with a ton of talent that has clearly underachieved and to have that be a bit of a coin flip series was this really interesting point of like how do we analyze this team. It was nearly impossible to get a true gauge of like where they were at in that moment. Was the 16 games because they had a light schedule and because, three or four of the teams had given up and had too many injuries by that point? Obviously, the answer to that question is no. But in the moment, you're watching them battle with Seattle, with Indiana, and you're starting to, you just don't know. And I think this is a perfect transition because it all comes back to Asia Wilson. We're gonna get into to some of the other players too. Of course, this was a very team effort, and to not make it reductive, like in my opinion, the reason outside of Asia that they won this third title in 4 years is because so many other players stepped up who had been struggling during the regular season, who finally found it. Obviously, the Nalissa Smith trade, but it all hinges on Asia, and we are seeing just a career arc that is ridiculous. I don't know how to describe it. And I'm less interested in like the GOAT convos, and I'm more interested in you being a person who has just been in Zooms with this team, covering this team so incredibly well, so consistently for years and years, and seeing this level of greatness on a day-to-day basis where it's like you're not just there for the 35 and 10s. You're also there for the once in a blue moon two for 13 or the little patches where like she's struggling because the weight of the crown is heavy. And so
Mhm.
I'm curious what it's been like for you to watch this level of greatness and this one of one career up close for these years covering this team.
I'd say first and foremost, it is a blessing. And I got to tell her this during the finals. They had like a shoot around type beat the day before, I think game four, I want to say. Either game three or game four. And before the media had to leave, I was like, hey, just quickly want to say thank you because I've gotten to learn so much from you and so much from the team, et cetera. And thank you for being accommodating, that kind of thing. And so, like, I think it's important to let, just in general in life, like, let the people know that you appreciate them. But it's been a blessing to watch this. Like, one, on a very basic level, she is so good at basketball. She is so good at basketball, and she continues to add things and refine things in her game. There is always something new, even if it isn't going to be like a major like box score jump or something. If you're watching closely enough, you'll notice, okay, ooh, Asia's getting more comfortable with the right hand. Asia's bringing the ball up the floor a little bit more. Ooh, they're starting Asia in the corner. She's getting off ball screens now. This is interesting. Okay, this year, and I got to ask her about this before the final started when they did the media session with the Aces. I was like, hey, you led the W in switches this year. Like, what has that process been like? It's just like there's always something different with Asia, aside from she's going to give you at least 20. She's going to give you between 9 and 10, 9 and 12 rebounds. She's going to block a couple of shots, yada, yada, yada. So, like, getting to track that on the basketball side has been incredibly cool. And watching her grow as a leader, like you talk to her, and especially I got to talk to her a bunch over the last 3, 4 years at this point, and she just seems like a great person. Like I fully believe that she is a great person, and that's so much of the battle. But listening to her talk about what she's had to tweak as a leader for this team as they were going through, we're 500, we're a game over 500, we're a game under 500. What is this? The big Minnesota loss, or I guess the biggest Minnesota loss, I should say, because there were just multiple double-digit losses to the Lynx this year. And this watching her like work through that in real time. And honestly, I'd take it back a year. Like I think it was a regular season game against the Liberty, I want to say. And I missed it live because I was at my sister's wedding. But I think this was the press conference in which she was kind of asked a leadership question or something along those lines, and she like cried during the post game presser, talking about how much this means to her and how much her teammates mean to her. And it's just like you don't get that without caring. You don't get that without being genuine. I think the whole team and the whole organization feels that. And so watching her grow as a person, as a leader, and as a basketball player at the same time has just been a marvel. And again, it has been a blessing to me personally to get to pick her brain on things on the basketball side, on the leadership side, and getting that kind of back and forth and having that kind of rapport with her. Like it's been awesome.
That you bookended that answer with just saying it's a blessing, I think is something that resonates, especially here to us, because we've had these conversations a lot with media, and it's the media, honestly, we talk about the split sometimes between like the old generation of journalists and the new generation of journalists, and seeing this as a job, as a paycheck, but also then seeing this as these are human beings that we're interacting with every day. I
Mhm.
think like there are merits to both, and what you do so well is that you blend those two schools of thought, and by being such a strong analytical basketball mind, there might not be like every player might not vibe with the stats being thrown at them. I have an ongoing like running joke with Leonie Phoebish because she's just like does not like numbers. And I'm like, I'm trying to ground this for you so that I can get an answer out of you. And like we have a good rapport because we are around each other enough. But
Mhm.
I think that you've built these relationships, and we see it when you talk to Asia, when you talk to Becky, when you talk to all the players on this team. How much that of that like relationship building is was intentional for you versus how much of it is just your like I don't know, seeing and understanding that they are doing a job, and a part of their job is to answer difficult questions from time to
Mhm.
time. But it doesn't mean that that's, the highest priority for them. And the just how important is it to you and intentional to like humanize those interactions when at the end of the day, you know that you need to get the answers that you're going to need for the next piece you're writing or for the next conversation you have or for the other teams around the league that you're covering.
Like it's a really good question. Like I don't know. Like I think my level of intentionality is more so I want to make sure I have this right and I have this clean. Whether that's a basketball question, a leadership question, off-court fun type stuff, I want to make sure that I am informed so thus I can inform the others. The struggle that I've always kind of had, and I use struggle loosely, but I've talked to you about this, talked to Steve about this. It's where I get these compliments for, and I got this recently. I asked Asia how she's doing before I get into my line of questioning, right? And it's something that she said that she's appreciated, like fans of Asia and stuff that have seen my work. It's like, oh, I'm glad you asked her this. And I'm like, this should just be commonplace. Like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything special. Like, she is a human being. I do hope she's doing well, and anybody that I've talked to is doing well because I want humanity to do well. Like, I don't know if I deserve a gold star for that. So that's where I'm always just kind of like, yeah, I do it and I mean it, but it's also like, I don't, everyone should, you know what I mean? So, like, I don't know if I seek out, let me make sure I make Asia smile today. Like, no, like, I care and I also have questions. So, like, let's, you know what I mean? Let's just do this. So I guess it's just how I move is the easiest way for me to answer that. I don't know if that's a great answer,
No, it
but
is.
like,
It is because like it doesn't have to all be this predetermined like machination. And I feel like a lot of times Owen is so good at this is he's standing in the back of a scrum and everyone's asking the same question 6 times in a row. And then he'll hop in and be like, I saw on your Instagram 2 days ago that you were like trying this new recipe. Can you like what inspired that? And it just like breaks the tension sometimes. And I think like that's just sometimes reading a room and seeing the person beyond the box score.
yeah,
And you're right. It should be the standard, but it's not. It's not. So I don't think it's something that you should be embarrassed about or even like uncomfortable about when you're receiving that praise because that just means that it's resonating with other people. That people
mhm,
are recognizing that you don't take this space for granted and you don't take these people for granted.
yeah,
And if it were the norm, nobody would call that out, which is
yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah, like it's just it's been an odd thing to navigate, but naturally, like I do appreciate the rapport I've been able to build with Becky and build with Asia and the Aces in general. And I think it is just important, you know, as much as I want to ask Jackie Young about her driving process and her growth as a playmaker. Hey, what's your Canes order? You just did a stint at Canes. How was that? Like, you know, like it's important for them to know, like, yes, they're basketball players, but they are people that play basketball and
Mhm.
not basketball players that sometimes do other things. And so, like, if there's a level of intention for me, like, I guess it's more so establishing that part of it. But like also, especially since I've been around them for as long as I have been, like they do know, like I do primarily have basketball questions for these awesome basketball players in mind. And like I'm glad that they have also built the comfort with me, or at the very least, they do a really good job of hiding that they're annoyed with me. I hope it's more the former than the latter. But either way, like Becky gets into it with me when I ask these detailed questions. Asia's willing to do that. Chelsea's been willing to do that. Even Jackie, in the way that Jackie does, Jackie will do that. You know what I mean? So like I do appreciate them for having that level of comfort with me and being open with me the way they have, because it makes it easier for episodes like this to where I can just call back different things
Mhm.
or just in general inform my audience with my writing or episodes of the Dunker Spot or whatever. I can bring more to the conversation and hopefully bring more understanding to people. And that felt especially important when the Aces were off to this weird start this year. It's like, well, here's why it's like this. And maybe that takes the panic meter for some fans from a 10 to an 8.5. If I can do that, then I feel like I'm doing my job.
I think it's such an important convo. And also these things work like it's all intertwined. I think about this often in the sense that so much of media, I think, just views the relationship with players as transactional. And so it's just like, oh, I need this quote about this. And if I don't get it, if you don't give it to me, then I'm going to be upset and whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, the how are you doing? How's your day going?
That
That
matters.
stuff that really matters. And then when you are asking about pick and roll coverages, it's like you've built this relationship. They trust you. They know you're not going to twist their words into some narrative that wasn't intended. And then you get like way better basketball coverage too. It just makes the whole thing work.
And the
Uh,
consistency of it too. I think that that's a really important thing is that you, like you said, you've been here for 4 seasons now on this beat all the time. So players could change over, but they talk in the locker room. We know they talk in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you just being there so consistently, and that's true for lots of people around this league that are building those reputations is that consistency is so important because we've all asked bad questions. We've asked terrible questions. We've stumbled through a whole bunch of bullshit. And the amount of times that I've been bailed out by a player just because I've built that relationship and they're like, no, I got you. I'll
Mhm.
take this one myself. Just clear out. Like that is that is something that I don't take for granted because yeah, it's the relationship building on the front end for sure.
And I'll just quickly say before we transition, like that's what made me sad about the recent, I want to say the recent Angel Pod episode with Taylor Rooks, which check that out by the way, really good conversation. But like part of that was her talking about her dealing with the media, and she's like, sometimes like I'm, a lot of times I'm terrified because no matter what I say, I know it can be twisted by someone or it will be twisted by someone, and it's just like I just wonder like media all obviously has a fine line to walk between like being a safe space for an athlete and being like a cheerleader for an athlete.
Hmm.
But I'm just like, I hope that Angel has people that can be safe for her to where she doesn't feel the need to like shelter herself because I think it's a very valid concern that she has with the way that she's been covered. I'll say at large because obviously we all know people that do it correctly, so it's certainly not literally everyone, but by and large, she does get the short end of the stick with some of the coverage and like this way that people take the worst interpretation of whatever she says or does. And it's just like she's young and she's still trying to figure this stuff out while also just being great already and being a global name at this point. It's not easy. So like I do hope that she finds that or has that because I don't want her to, or any player really to have to feel like I have to be super guarded because if I slip up on a word here, it's going to be taken this way and now it's a story and now I got to answer to my teammates and yeah, and it's just I don't know. I just want it to be better for everyone.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I'm glad you said that too, because honestly, you could see like in Angels rookie season, you could see a moment pretty early on where the implicit trust, if there even was that at that point, because people were playing in her face in college too, and have been for a long time. But I think she came into the WNBA really like she was doing shoot around avails, all this stuff. She wanted to do the thing. She's like so incredible if you build that trust with her and give her, questions that she deserves. And the media was not even close to holding up its end of the bargain. And so she had to like become more guarded to protect herself, which is heartbreaking. And just yeah, the we need to be better as media at large for sure. And Angel is maybe the number one person who has had to deal with the bullshit. Um, I want to transition to Jackie Young because you were talking a little bit earlier about Asia Wilson's leadership, and I think that like no one illustrates Asia's growth as a leader better, and even just like who Asia's always been, just as a person and as a leader of a basketball team, than Jackie Young and her growth and the way in which when I wrote about Jackie Young back in 2022, and no player is more instrumental in my journey as like getting super into women's basketball than Jackie Young back in the Notre
Mhm.
Dame days. Uh, when I wrote about her in 2022, the themes that came up constantly were keep working, keep grinding, and can I find that confidence? Bringing the confidence out of her, finding the thing inside of you as a competitor that's like, no, I am trusting the work. I've done this. I'm built for this, and it's gonna show. And Asia's been so instrumental in helping Jackie find that confidence and to where it's just a staple. It's not a question, and it hasn't been a question really since 2022. There are obviously little dips and patches and whatever where a player struggles, but for the most part, like during the course of this 4 year run, Jackie Young overhauled her jump shot mechanics. Shout out Tyler Marsh, and she just became a player where confidence was a staple and not something that would be there one game and then not there the next game. 30 points, 10 assists, no turnovers in a winner take all game five. Just like amazing performance after amazing performance, dropping 30 in the finals. what have you made of Jackie Young's growth and the fact that she just gets better every year? It's like the floor is already so high for her where you know she's just going to be so solid, so smart in her decision making. But now it's like that ceiling is equally as high. The best quote I got in 2022 when I did the Jackie story was Becky Hammon said her ceiling is there is no ceiling. And I feel like Becky Hammon has been very validated in that quote. So again, this is another like bad fanboy Owen question. There's not even a question. Just talk about Jackie Young and how great she is and what it's been like to watch.
The talk about's very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
no,
I
it
knew you'd like that. I knew you'd like
uh,
that. It's just for you.
oh man. But in all seriousness, like it has been fun and a little funny watching this Jackie ascension, honestly. Because it's one of those, to kind of bounce off of your point, it's one of those like everyone kind of saw it before she did, while she was also working as hard as she was. And like this year, particularly the second half of this year, has really felt like that work plus that skill plus like the confidence. And you're starting to see her like plenty of jokes have been made throughout the regular season. Like Jackie's just jawing at people more often now. And
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, this is fun. She's no longer screaming in lowercase. Like this is she's actually going back and forth with some folks. It's like, okay, this is cool on top of the defense and the driving and the growing pull-ups and the playmaking and all the things. And so like it's been fun to like watch her come out of her shell. And that is clearly multifaceted based on like now she's on threads and that just all of the unrivaled, all of the things with Jackie Young off the floor as well. But her coming out of her shell and like really understanding, no, actually I am this good and I can not only perform, I can kind of bend the game to my will more often than not. And so, like, seeing her tap into that has been a joy to watch, and hearing her talk more about that has been a joy to listen to and a joy to just in general to learn about. And I'd say, just to kind of to slightly bring it back to Asia, I think it's been super cool as I kind of reflected over the weekend to kind of watch them go through this together. Like naturally they've just been together throughout this entire run, but even this season, as Asia wasn't shooting to her usual level, she's seeing more double teams than she ever has. The mid-range jumper wasn't falling to the same degree. Jackie Young was taking more shots, but she was also dealing with defenses throwing more attention her way. She didn't know if it was going to be a drop or at the level, late switch, whatever. So she's navigating that. And it's just like watching both of them work through those kinks and then both of them also just kind of hitting insane levels at the same time. Like the Jackie Young and we had an offline conversation about this, but like the Jackie Young we saw in the second half of the year was not the Jackie Young that we saw in the first half of the year, in my opinion. And the Asia Wilson that we saw in the first half of the year was not the Asia Wilson that we saw in the second half of the season, and postseason obviously extends for both. And so even them having that kind of connection where they had to lean more in within each other, they had to pull from each other in different ways for it to culminate in yet another championship in which Jackie had at least a light argument for finals MVP. Like I think Asia was the right decision, but Jackie played well enough to at least have a short combo about it. For them to hit that level at the same time, it obviously makes them darn near unbeatable. But just through the overall context of their relationship together, and as you talked about at the top, Asia's leadership and pouring into Jackie the way that she has, and something that Asia talked about this year was Jackie being more vocal with her about what she needs and what she wants on the floor. And something I wrote about, like, they've been the best pick and roll duo statistically. You can watch it and see it, but statistically, they've been the best pick and roll duo in the league the last 2 years. And this year, way more handoffs than pick and rolls this year. But like watching them pitch and catch with flipping angles and all these things, they're building that chemistry too. Like it all just kind of exudes and shows itself. So it's just been a really fun journey.
I love Jackie bringing up that Asia calls her the little sister she never wanted. And it's just I feel like that's such a great encapsulation of the relationship that the two of them have built. And also, yeah, the flip in seeing Jackie's confidence grow is that like now she's so self-aware about what her reputation is off the court as being shy and being quiet. And now like she's built a brand out of it, which is so awesome. But talking about building a brand off of what people are saying, I loved Asia wearing the regression year shirt to the parade.
Woo!
If there was any player on this team that I think dealt with more questions about where they were at at just physically and talent wise and just at a juncture, it's Chelsea Gray.
Mhm.
Chelsea, like obviously she has that devastating injury end of 2023 and then just does not look like herself at all in 24. And then we see at Unrivaled, it's like, wow, wait, is Chelsea back? And in a format that I did not think was, I thought it would be great for the spacing, but in terms of the up and down, I didn't know if it would work for her. And she looked great there. And then season starts, back to a bit of a slow start. And we see her kind of put it together as the year comes through. And if there's anyone that should have been talking shit, I think that it was Chelsea Gray this year.
Mhm.
And I don't know that we've seen enough of it, but like you said, we've got a lot more time, maybe too much time before the next season starts. So she's going to have an opportunity to do it. But just through your eyes, what did you see from Chelsea? And how much do you think that she still got? Because this is still this, it was Asia and Jackie, but we saw huge stretches of play where they were a big three again.
Mhm.
And we didn't know for a long time this season if we were going to see that again.
No, like I think the Chelsea of it all, it's been interesting to track because as you laid out the timeline, like Unrivaled in particular, I was just like, ooh, well, welcome back, Chelsea Gray shot making. And then the back of my mind is just like, this still isn't the same separation that we're used to. She's making a lot of tough shots and she's getting to her spots, but it's taking an extra dribble to get them. So like I wonder what this is going to look like when we get back to the 5-on-5 of it all. And as you mentioned, it was a bit of an up and down start for her, at least offensively. Like the turnover thing was just weird.
Yeah.
Like the assist thing, and I remember tweeting it out early in the year. It's like, well, she A's is leading the team in assists per game right now. Like Chelsea is averaging more potential assists, and so like at least that's there. But even that's a little bit lower than what we're accustomed to. It was just an odd stretch, and like it felt like she was just a hair off on some of the timing of the passes that we've come used to and come to love. And it's interesting that we flowed to Chelsea now because like I just finished listening to her episode with Sue Bird yesterday, and she was talking about some of her own struggles there and trying to regain that confidence in herself. And she mentioned a conversation that she had with Becky Hammond where she was just frustrated with how she was playing. And Becky just kind of told her, like, no, who you are, what you do is enough. And like that was kind of the light bulb moment for her. And she took off from there. But like watching her kind of find herself offensively with what, her spots are her spots, but how do I get there? When is it time for me to get there? Especially since Jackie's doing more. We're continuing to use Asia and moving her around the board. Jewel Lloyd's here. We're trying to get her comfortable. Like there's a lot of moving pieces. And I think everyone deserved a little bit more grace for working through that. And I say that as someone that was like, hey, so I get what y'all are trying to work through, but what is this? This is not what I thought this season was going to be the start. So like I'm not exempt from that. I have my own questions, but watching her work through that and kind of reinvent herself defensively at the same time was kind of wild in hindsight. Like this isn't the first time that we've seen Chelsea Gray defend fours sometimes and get strips and things. Like you can go back to the 22 finals to see some of those possessions. But for her to do it with this volume was certainly different. And for her to do so with this effectiveness was ridiculous. Like she legitimately made like an all defensive surge. And I know she got at least one vote for all defensive second team.
Yeah.
But like for her to do that at this stage while still being the point guard that can see just about anything before you even think about it. And at any given moment, like we saw in the game four, yeah, I can just hit you with 18, just hit you with some timely pull-ups because you can't keep me from my spots. It was cool for her to have that kind of resurgence, for her to flip things the way she did. And to your overall point, Miles, like she has a lot of room to talk if she wants to, because the conversations around her the last calendar year have been kind of wild. Like I think legitimate concern is fine when you think about like the nature of her injuries and things. Like I think that's okay. It did kind of get far
Mhm.
with some of the stuff that was said. I'm just like, okay, I understand why you feel that way. I won't take that from you. There's a lot of potential for you to look really bad a few months from now if this turns around. And sure enough, here's another championship.
I'm gonna go Grandpa Owen for like a quick second and just say that like we are way too comfortable calling like some of the greatest players of all time washed on the internet.
Mhm.
Like, just stop it. Like, it's like you can make a point, but everyone has to like be the loudest and get the most likes and cause the most controversy or whatever. And it's like, no, we can have a nuanced conversation about where Chelsea has struggled to get back to her peak levels post injury in the 2023 finals. Sure, exactly what you were saying at Unrivaled. Like, okay, shot making's coming back, but she's not gaining quite as much separation. These little things, can she stay in front of people on the perimeter as well as she used to? These things that are very real. And it's like that is okay to talk about. But I just get so frustrated at just like to what you were saying at the end of that great answer. It's like, yeah, people just wrote her off. People it's like, okay, Chelsea Gray, she's not gonna
She's
do
cooked.
anything. Yeah, she's cooked. Like whatever. It's like she is so far from cooked. I mean, the variety of what she did the second half of this season in the playoffs. I'm glad you talked about the defense because I was just like wowed. And she's always been, might go down as the greatest point guard in league history. Defense has always been a staple of her game, pre 2023 finals injury. But the way she did it defensively, the second half of this season and in the playoffs was just, it had my jaw dropping. It was unreal. And then the offense, it started to fall into place. It started to be like, okay, I'm not gonna be doing what I was doing in 2022, where it's like every time down, it's like I'm just getting another bucket or getting another assist because I am on the biggest heater anyone's ever seen. But it would be like right when Vegas needed it, especially in that Indiana series. I feel like crunch time in the Indiana series, it was like, oh, we need a Chelsea bucket. Boom, I got us. And just these little moments, and then defensively, we know she's just a savant out there, but usually I feel like we talk about that from a passing perspective. Everything she sees with her passes, her anticipation on defense, the things she was seeing before they happened. It's just like it's a lesson that like let's chill out before we write people off when they're this great at what they do and when they are going through very difficult times, in terms of injuries and like building back to 100% strength. So that's just a little Grandpa Owen moment. It had to be done. And now I'm going to say, because, we could talk about this team all day. I want to just really quickly mention a few players and start by saying that when it comes to being loud and wrong on the internet, I, on the Nelissa Smith trade, have never been more incorrect about anything in my entire life. I was like, I was flat out wrong. She proved me so wrong, and I've never been more delighted to be proved to be such a fool. Nelissa Smith, I mean, wow. Like it just the ultimate example of sometimes it takes the right fit. This is a player who's incredibly talented, who's just such a great person to have on your team. I think that was like an underrated part of her journey. Her and Aaliyah Boston had this really cool relationship. It just never ended up working out on the court. And obviously, it couldn't have worked out better on the court here. So I wanted to shout her out. I want to shout out Jewel Lloyd, another player who's getting written off as being washed, who just stepped up in the right moments when she needed to. Dana Evans, talk your shit. The fact that people are trying to clown her for celebrating like the hugest life achievement when she played great is like some of the lamest stuff I've ever seen. So Dana, keep like just oh man, keep proving them wrong. Is there anyone you want to talk about of that group or any of the other supporting players that you feel deserves the love?
Well, one, I want to say Grandpa Owen into the heater is incredible content. I enjoyed all of that. I'll just say, I guess quickly, like one on the Melissa trade, I was very confused by the Aces giving up the first to
Yeah,
bring her in. And like
same.
I don't know if I am completely off of that portion yet, just because, and I asked Delissa about this the other day. It's like when you were getting traded, like were there other teams in the mix, or was this just you're going to Vegas? And she said, I that's a question for my agent. Like she just told me that we're going to Vegas. And I was like, okay, that's fair. And so like independent of that, because my biggest hang up was take the flyer on Delissa because of the scoring potential, because of the rebounding, the general size, etc. That is fine. If you're giving up a first, I need to hear that like three or four of the teams are in a bidding war here, and you
Yeah.
had to go with the future first to get this over the top.
Yeah.
I don't have that information, so I don't want to completely say, well, I was just wrong about that, because that does still just feel kind of steep considering the rest of the Aces pick situation right now. But to what she actually did on the floor, she absolutely changed things for them. Like
Mhm.
Becky Hammon has historically been a team coach that says we don't care about offensive rebounding. We take the shot, we get back in transition. And that started to change a little bit earlier this year. And when Melissa came, that took off because of how good she was. And Becky Hammon, also a bastion of complete spacing. Melissa, you can actually lurk around the dunker spot. That is okay. Because we know you can make shots from here, you can take a dribble and power through somebody, or you can crash the offensive glass. So, like, that's great recognition for Becky Hammon on top of that. But Melissa was nails in the defensive growth that she displayed when getting here. And some of the moments that she had towards the end of the regular season and during the postseason, I was just like, oh, this is tremendous stuff. This is great work for her. This is great recognition for her. This is great coaching from Becky Hammond. If Melissa gets to a level of consistent competence on that end with that size and can help on the glass like that, like she can just be a future, she can just be a core piece for this group moving forward. And to your point about just her as a person, she just seems fun and sweet and funny. And the team absolutely loves her. And it did not take long for them to gel that way. And so as we get into whatever this free agency slash expansion draft period is going to be, I would be shocked if Melissa Smith was not an ace next season and moving forward. Like they love her and she has obviously helped their basketball team. So like that's probably the biggest thing I want to say. As far as the quick shot, I was like Dana, who boy, the drives, the shot making, the stops against Alyssa Thomas in the finals after the first half of game one. And she was just like, well, okay, the Aces adjusted how they want to defend that inverted pick and roll. But ultimately, you could just kind of see in Dana, oh, nah, this is not happening to me again. And then she let people know, you're not moving stuff and some back and forth with. Yeah, Dana's already one of my favorite role players in the league. Yeah, Dana deserves the salute. And Jewel Lloyd, offensive rebounding forever. I think that's about all I got. Great
Yes.
season, Jewel.
I do want to just add my voice to the chorus of people that were wrong about this trade, but it was closer to what you were talking about there, Nikias, where I was just like, I think I sometimes get stuck in the mock GM of it
Mhm.
all, where I'm thinking we're about to go half a decade basically without the aces, without Asia Wilson and Jackie Young adding a first round pick. And it was just thinking about the longevity of that team. And at the same time, if you are a talent evaluator and saying this is our gap and this is what we need that can put us over the top, the conversation at the time with the Aces, struggling around 500 was, is Nalissa Smith, does she answer that question, or is this a 3-month band-aid that then you're trading 4 years of control of a potential back end or back half first rounder? And I
Mhm.
think like sometimes I'm guilty of definitely getting way too heavy into the potential of it all, the math of it all, and trying to look at value through that lens and not through here's what we're putting out on a nightly basis. And
Mhm.
if everyone else shifts their role by one spot, how much depth does that bring to us? And all the credit there also just goes to Nalissa for every reason you both have mentioned already, for just the energy that she infused both on and off the court into that group, and the way that she was just so charmed by Asia before they ever played together, but
Mhm.
that is a very much a like, okay, here's a good time to meet your heroes and have them actually help you level up and play alongside each other. And I think like that there can't be enough credit to it working because of who Nalissa is, both as a basketball player and as a person, to fit in exactly what that team needed from her. But in in the interest of transitioning again into less fun stuff, we've had a couple of allusions to what this offseason is going to look like.
Mhm.
And before we can get to the fun of two more expansion drafts and then a very quick free agency, we're going to have to see these players and the league actually agree to sit around a table amicably and have a conversation where they're talking to each other and not through each other. And everything that we know and everything that we're going to hear, we are not we're not flies on a wall. We're hearing somebody's perspective. So
Mhm.
I think that colors where we think we're at in terms of we're either hearing from the league side how the players are not coming in good faith, and then we're hearing from the players how the league is not taking them seriously, and very similar things, and they're just not seeing eye to eye, seemingly on anything, which makes us feel like, cool, this is never going to be resolved, and that just feels like America in a nutshell in 2025.
Mhm.
But where are you at just in terms of having covered the sport to see through some uh, cycles of negotiations for CBAs, whether it's the NBA or the WNBA, and where do you land on lockout as a tool for with the players having the most leverage they've ever had in the league's history and the most and at this inflection point, this growth point that the league's at?
I think for me, like it's been interesting to track this one because I feel like on the NBA side, it's mostly like you hear some numbers and you get a little bit of chatter back and forth, but it's kind of just a waiting game. It's like, okay, there's so much TV money, the player
Mhm.
salaries are going up so much. Like, obviously, a lot of that is just built into the revenue sharing system that they already have. It's like, okay, this is already solid. They're just kind of tweaking 2 or 3 percentage points here or there. And like, this is going to get done, whatever. Right. On the W, it's this inflection point rather because of how relatively young the league is compared to the NBA, where it's like, oh no, this really matters. Not that the NBA side doesn't or other sports don't, but it's like, oh no, they really have to nail this because the league itself is still growing. You're obviously getting the infusion of like your Caitlins, your Angels, you just got Paige, you're eventually gonna get Juju, et cetera, et cetera. On top of we got Asia, we got Fee, we still got Stewie, and you enter all these names in. It's like, oh, they really have to nail this one, especially coming off of the last CBA where cool, we got more money and stuff, and then prioritization upset just about everyone. A few months later, it's like, okay, we have to be more cognizant of what concessions are being made when this thing gets done. And so I don't mind the players being like, no, this is our line in the sand. And even if we don't get our exact number, you better be pretty darn close to this line in the sand before we even think about moving forward. Like we are going to do this. We have unrivaled talks of one or two other leagues popping up soon on the women's basketball side. I have to do more research before I give actual thoughts on that. But yeah, like I don't mind the players kind of standing firm. They should. They deserve more. They deserve more money and they deserve a larger revenue share. And so whatever that looks like, I think they should get that. And I think they should get whatever concessions they feel they need on that front. And so I've always been team ownership needs to spend their money. Broke boys get your money up. And if you don't want to spend on your teams, get different ownership in there. Like very naive thinking and very easy for me to say behind the microphone than someone that's actually making these decisions. I understand that obvious caveat, but like no, like let's get this done. I think the CBA deadline is October 31st. Like they're not going to get a deal done before that. I would love to be wrong, but they're just not. I expect that's going to be extended, and then the real conversation starts. And I wondered like what kind of bending happens on either side. I'm sure you've both seen the clip by now of Adam Silver talking about this earlier today.
Mhm.
So people seem very pleased with that 30-second clip. I'm sure everyone's going to go back and listen to the full conversation. I'm sure of it. But no, it's tough. But I don't mind the players standing firm because they deserve more. Just flat out.
Yeah, 100%. And I think even something we talked about when we talk about the players and media, we're seeing a similar thing here where it's like relationship building matters. And the players feel like, on top of everything else, on top of the numbers not
Hmm.
being what we deserve, on top of all these different things that we are fighting for and that we deserve as players, as the players' union, there's also just baseline respect that is clearly
Yes.
not there. And you can't go forward without that when this league is great because of the players. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
There have been like small moments. I remember, oh, and what was this, like June, where Sabrina said in a random scrum around right before All-Star
I remember
that she
this.
talked to Adam Silver way more frequently than she spoke to Kathy Engelbert. And that makes sense in terms of just her partnerships with the NBA side of things and what she's done with, Steph Curry and what she's done with the Nike Europe series that she went to last winter, things like that. But it's just there's such an easy comfort there. And I want to say, I don't think it's in Kathy Engelbert's job title that she has to have these relationships and has to be cordial, but there is not that baseline respect. Whether or not that's part of what the job description is, there's obviously just no, the players do not feel seen. And in the CBA, there was a lot that happened in this last one that I don't think a lot of newer fans or even older fans, because that is intentionally obtuse, so that's hard to get through, understand just how bad things were before that when it comes to some of the quality of life stuff that players were dealing with, where they were having to pay for their spouses to come on the road with them or their children, and there were no child care regulations or anything like that. Like there was a lot of stuff beyond salary that had to be taken care of at the last point. There was a lot of stuff that they got screwed over because there was a worldwide pandemic that affected some of the growth points of the league for the first 2 years of that contract. So it was hard to hit a lot of those incentive bonuses that the players were hoping to hit. Prioritization, I don't think the players realized what they were giving up, like to your point at that time. And it's just there's a lot that went into it that now they can learn from. But there's so much to be said about that All-Star weekend when it was 40 plus players that came through together to that meeting. And there were players that came to Indianapolis that were not playing in the game that weekend, that were just like, it's important for me to be here, that were not part of the players union. And that solidarity, I think, is more important now than ever, because if they are being told behind closed doors that this league is what makes you great and not that you as players are what makes this league run and such a draw, then they need to make sure that they understand that they've got each other's backs and that, like you said, there are more and more opportunities cropping up around the world. And the W, I think, has been buckling a little bit on that the last few years, where we're seeing the WNBL, or we're seeing Athletes Unlimited on the W app, and we're seeing way more collaboration from the college game pipeline up into the pros than we used to see. It used to
Mhm.
be like, no, the W is your goal because it's your only option. And I think that they've started to show that they understand that, but the players definitely don't feel like that's the case behind the scenes. And yeah, I'll echo that. I stand by them waiting until they get what they think they deserve, and that the sport is not going anywhere, and that
Mhm.
there are a lot of deep pocketed people that are trying to buy in right now and do not want to see their investment met with a $0 return in 2026 and beyond. So that just goes to even more leverage, is that there are a lot of people with those deep pockets that want to see the league running come May next year.
Yeah, I was just gonna quickly say to the respect point, like obviously I was not in the room. I was not in Florida when Nafisa Collier and Kathy Engelbert had whatever conversation they had, so I can't speak to the validity of that. I will say that that pre-finals press conference was a funny one to be in the room for. I'll put it that way. But what I will say is I think even if those exact things weren't said or if they were said or whatever, just by virtue of action and how these negotiations have kind of gone, I do feel like there's a baseline level of gratefulness that the league expects based on, to your point, Miles, how bad things were before and how much things have improved during the Kathy era. And it's just like, it's an interesting thing to balance because she has objectively made the league better.
Mhm.
However, that doesn't bank in like I made it better than the last people. What do you have to complain about? Still plenty, actually. And here's our list. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. You can both be appreciative of the legitimate growth that she has helped foster and some of the opportunities that she has created, while also saying, "Yeah, good job. Here's the next level that we have to get to, and then here's the next level after that." And you kind of have to meet us where we are, even if we can't get 100% of the things that we want. We need to have conversations, and more than anything, from what this has shown, you need to show that you are a safe enough space for us to have these conversations with you. Like there has to be a level of trust that we have that we can have these combos in good faith. And so again, if we have to concede, I feel like I was heard at the very least. And there's maybe a pathway to getting this done at a later date versus I already did good stuff. What more do you want? Like that can't be, even if it's not the actual bit, the players can't feel like that's the bit because that's how you get here. And that complicates everything for everyone.
What a perfect note to end on, I think. Uh Nekias, I say this every time when we're, closing out the episode, but it's like we could talk for 5 hours. I just enjoy these episodes so much. And we appreciate you so much for coming on and just being down to talk about whatever. Like I love the basketball of it all, but every time we get to talk about media stuff and just all the nuances of this crazy, awesome, funny, weird job that we do. It's just such a joy, and you're the best. And thank you so much for taking the time again.
Oh man, I appreciate y'all having me. Two quick things
Please.
before we get out of here. One, Owen, at some point we are going to be at the same place at the same time.
I
I
know.
feel like we have missed each other like 18 times
Yep.
at this point over the last year and a half. So at some point, a dap, a hug, or something's got to happen.
Please.
Secondly, before we got out of here, want to shout out Clever Shirts. Want to shout out Kevin for this
Yes.
awesome shirt.
Yes.
Also the Asia Jackie, a Jackie. I don't know how to say it. But either way, also got that one. That dude is phenomenal. I finally got to, that's one of the highlights of my postseason, honestly. Like one, shout out to Yahoo. I got to travel for the finals and like I didn't have to pay for it this time. So like that's
Hey.
so much of a weight lifted. So thank you for the investment on that front. But beyond that, I did finally get to meet Kevin in person and get to hear his story. That is just an awesome dude. He deserves all the opportunities that he's gotten over the past few years with the Aces and elsewhere. So I wanted to wear this because it's awesome, but like shout out to him. Wanted to make sure I got that on air somewhere. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I got to
As
meet
always.
I got to meet him like for 2 seconds at All Star this year, and I want to have a longer conversation with him for sure because my single favorite piece of W merch that I own is the orange hoodie, but with the Asia statue as the logo, and I
Mhm.
wear it everywhere, and I love it so much to the point that like my wife had to like patch it up because it had holes in the sleeve. So that shout out to Kevin, and it's been when we first started covering this league, I was buying like stuff off of Etsy that was screen printed that was just like a mess. And there's so much good merch out there now. And especially, we've all done the independent grind up to trying to build out a brand ourselves.
Mhm.
And I know that a lot of these people that are working on merch have to sometimes deal with the copyright of it all and talk about someone who's good at relationship building. It's awesome to see him making shirts for the players' families and things
Mhm.
like that too. So I really appreciate that shout out. And I also need to go buy myself that shirt, that hoodie that you're wearing right now.
It's good stuff. It just in general, like thank y'all for having me. It is always a pleasure to talk hoops and media and everything else. I always appreciate having this platform. I am so impressed with the platform that you built and the relationships that you built across the league. Like much as I get to talk to Asia, like Owen, you and Ka, like Miles, you would the Liberty as a concept. It has been cool to watch y'all do the work that you do. So keep doing it, keep killing it. And again, thank you for having me.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks so much. Talk soon.
Yes, sir.